Hi, my name is Paulo Vito, I'm from Brazil, and I would like to talk about a project I was able to develop while I was working for an engineering company. This project is different and special because the company's expertise was in MEP engineering, that is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. So this project was different from anything we used to work before, and it's an Internet of Things project for monitor the level of water tanks, especially for one building we used to work on, in which we had two water tanks, one at the top and one at the bottom, and we want to monitor both levels. So in order to do so, we had those ultrasonic modules, and the way it works is that it sends an ultrasonic pulse that when it reflects on a hard surface or on a water surface, in this case, it comes back, and then we can measure the time between emission and reception, and based on this time and in the speed of sound, we can measure distance. And in order to do this controlling, we had those microcontrollers that are called ESP32. Those ESP boards are special because they can connect to Wi-Fi, and those in particular, they also can communicate with another radio technology called LoRa, which has a longer range than Wi-Fi. And another advantage of these boards is that they can be programmable with Arduino IDE. That is a very widely used and well-known IDE for microcontrollers. So in order to implement this, I decided to break the tasks in 3 stages. And each stage, I would use one main programming language for each one. In the first step, involving the ESP boards, I would use C for the reading, process, and transmitting the data via LoRa and then over the internet to a server. Then the second stage would be the server side or the backend, in which I use another programming language called PHP that would then be able to handle the insertion of data in the database or the search from it based on data requested from the user. And then the user interface or client side or front end using JavaScript, HTML, and CSS that would retrieve data from the server and then display it on the screen. So for the first stage, we had the challenge to measure the water level percentage based on the distance of the sensor to the water surface. So in order to do so, we had to measure two fixed distances that would be the distance from the sensor to the maximum level and the sensor to the bottom of the water tank. And with the distance that's measured in real time, we can go to this formula and then find the percentage of the water level we still have left on the tank. So using the C programming language alongside 3 particular libraries called healthtech.h, Wi-Fi.h, and HTTP client.h, I was able to implement a network for communication to send the data from the sensors to an ESP board on both water tanks to a receiver that would then connect to a router via Wi-Fi and then send it to the internet via a post request. In this way, I would be able to get the sensor data over to the server. And in this network, I can also send not only the data from the sensor, but also a unique identifier for each of those ESP boards in order to find out if they are still connected to the system or not. And this I will show later on when I show the actual application running. Second stage is the server side or the backend, in which we had a MySQL database available at the company's domain. And in that database, we could run SQL queries for insert and selection that would allow us to insert data and then search it. And in order to do so, I built some PHP scripts, one for inserting the data from the ESP network to the database, and another one to sort that data based on input from the client or the front end. And that PHP script would send the data as formatted text, which at that time was the solution that I found. But today, after studying a bit more about it, I would probably use JSON, which is another way to communicate data. That stands for JavaScript Object Notation. That is a data type that makes handling data much easier, especially with JavaScript, which is the language that I use on the client side or the front end. That would request data from the server based on user inputs, and then handle that data received from the server and show it on the screen. And the way I decided to show it on the screen was using a JavaScript library called HighCharts that is specific to data visualization. And among the many features that this library has, it gives me a way to display data as a gauge meter to monitor the current water level of a specific tank, or a chart to monitor the water level over time. So surprisingly enough, I found out that this application is still running today under this URL. And in here we can check the water level currently on one specific water tank. This number is probably not right due to some sort of the lack of calibration. Probably someone changed the position of the sensor, so then the numbers are not accurate. But I can also show it as a graph, showing the 10 last values received from the sensor for that specific water tank. Can show also the last 24 hours. We can see that the data is not very pretty right now, but we can make it look much better. And another feature we had here, as I said before, I can identify which ESP board is sending data. So if in the case of one being disconnected from the system, as it is the case of this one, it shows a message saying it is disconnected, and then we would have to go there and check why that is happening and why and how we can solve it. Here it also shows that it doesn't have any data from the last 24 hours since it's disconnected. And that's pretty much it. That's the project I was able to develop, and I'm really proud of it. So thank you very much, and that's it.